welcome to everyone to today's webinar, Leverage Your Data, Unlock Certification Insights with Intact Data Services. I'm Mike Richmond, your host for today's webinar with Exemplar Global and Intact. Now, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping for you all. If you're watching this session live, you can feel free to ask questions at any time. There's a little Q&A button right at the bottom of your screen. Just ask your questions via Q&A, and I will then forward them right on to our speakers for you. If you're watching this session on demand, you can also ask questions. Just email us at info@exemplarglobal.org, and then we'll get your questions over to our speakers, and they'll get back to you with their responses. Speaking of our speakers, we have a couple of excellent ones for you here today. First is Jochen Klebot, and Jochen is the head of analytics and AI with Intact Systems. And Intact is the industry-leading cloud and on-premise ERP technology company for audit, assessment, certification, accreditation, and standards management. And he's joined today by Christian Artner-Yanni. And Christian is a well-recognized data engineer, trainer, consultant, and lecturer. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jochen to get us started. So Jochen, take it away.
Thank you very much, and a warm welcome also from my side to today's webinar. So today we're going to talk about data, and not just any data, but pretty much certification, inspection data within, of course, our product. But actually, we're talking about today data that everyone's gathering, everyone's using, everyone's like trying to get to come to a certification decision. So first, of course, it will be good to know what Intact does, because the data is kind of like in this product that we are offering. So what we do is pretty much like from sustainability to aerospace, it's audit and certification management. So we have an ERP system, an enterprise resource planning system for the whole process of the audit and certification, from like onboarding clients to audit planning to the audit itself, but also to the steps after all of that, to the invoice. Sorry. So our markets is pretty much like standard setters, like SQ5 for the food industry and so on. We have audits and certification, like certification bodies. We have accreditation bodies and supplier and internal audits. So we kind of like cover it all. And we have clients from all over that space. You might know some of them from Kiva, IFS, SQFI, AIB, USDA, pretty much around the globe. We have 7 offices for sales partners around the globe. As I said, we're on the market for more than 21 years, so nothing new. That's a topic that we're quite busy with for a long time. And of course, in the last couple of years, it was not so much, or not just about like, okay, we need a software for our whole audit and certification workflow. It's about what can we do with the data that we're actually gathering. And you might remember also former days, there were like these buzzwords around, from like risk-based auditing to informed decision making and some other topics. And now with this new ChatGPT era, I would say we come again, the discussion is taking a little bit up speed again. As I said before, the ERP system that we are providing, from applications, client quotations, contracts, planning, audits, administrative reviews, findings, reviews, certification, certificates, and invoicing. At every single step in that process, we are gathering a lot of data. Or actually, not we do, our clients do. And of course, the data that is in our system is our clients' data, of course. Nevertheless, so our clients then ask, we have now used your system for a couple of years. What can we do with it? All these cool things these days with dashboards and the insights creation and so on, ChatGPT, whatsoever. What can we do with it? And we started 8 years ago, where we said, okay, let's actually come up with a specific unit inside of Intact that is tackling exactly that challenge. What can we do with data? How can we come from raw data to a dashboard to inform decisions and everything in between. And of course, everything that is gathered in this process is kind of like looked up into a database. I don't want to go into much details, but databases these days, they're not Excel files, right? So they're highly connected tables and kind of like in a format which is not so easy to use if you do not know how to look into this database. So that's why we have what we call data services. Data services pretty much like giving access to customers to their data in various forms as they need it. So once again, there's a big database where everything is like stored from our clients. And then these data services enables them to access the data. And not just access, but also to do some pretty cool stuff with it. And this is also why Christian is today with me. He is one of the leaders in the industry and the field who is really taking that to the next level. So data services, what is that? Pretty much what we offer is APIs, a reporting database, and data views. So APIs, you might have heard of that. So it's kind of like an interface, a direct interface between the productive database and every other system that you want to talk to. For example, we have APIs for transactions with, for example, Salesforce and so on. So this is really like you can also write data back into our system, but also get data out of our system. So API is a very modern way of doing things. Not even modern, I would say. They're around for quite some time, but APIs is kind of like the way to do to connect the systems. Nevertheless, it's kind of like raw data still. Yeah, so you have to know where to look for. It is data in its rawest format. But when you have actually, for example, a data analyst wanting to analyze the data in the system of our clients, then you need a reporting database. Pretty much what it does, it's a replication of the productive database, and it's well described. Yeah? So for every data engineer, data/data analyst, with a little bit of experience and a little bit of like getting to know the database, you have access to most of the data that is also in the productive database. The next step would be data views. So reporting database is still like a really rational database. Yeah. So a relational database. Yeah. So it's not like in an Excel format or whatsoever. It's still highly connected and you have to know your way around. But for some of the data, what we have is we flatten it out to have actually an Excel file, for example. Yeah. And this is what we call data views. We don't have data views for every single data piece in the database, but for like the most common things that our customers would need, we do have it. And once again, and this pretty much goes not just for the Intech system, but I would say like that's kind of like standard what you would do if you want to access data. Yeah, from raw data to processed data, very processed data. But of course, it comes not just with advantages. As I said, the data views are very easy to use. They're straightforward, well described. But of course, sometimes you would say, nah, I'm missing some data. And I would actually need to go to the reporting database or step back. And even if it's not there, even to the productive database. So having said that, these are different steps, or these are different services that we offer for our customers that they can then build their insights. And how that's going to look like, Christian will tell you in a second. This is just, once again, data views as we have it at Intect. So you have seen before that we also gather quite some information about our clients or the clients of the clients. address those classifications, audit orders, finding certification, certificates, invoices, inputs, products, pretty much like the basic thing that you would need to analyze data. These are in these flattened out tables. And once again, probably the easiest way to connect to it would be an Excel file, but of course you can use other tools as well. And this is actually the cool thing about data fuse. You're technology independent. Yeah. You might want to use Excel, but you can also use Power BI, because in Excel, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get the things in that way that you wanted. So Power BI is a way, more powerful tool to do that. You can use Tableau, Looker, whatever you want. Fast and easy connection, and actually a little bit an experienced end user who knows how to do the stuff with Excel can take these data services, the data fuse, and just work with it. There is no SQL needed, no like fiddling around with pipelines, nothing, or data preparation. It's just sitting there and you connect the tool, you get the login credentials, and then that's pretty much what you do. Once again, here, it's as easy as that. So, for example, that is Power BI. You would say you get credentials from us with the server and the database and some more login details. Then a navigator opens, you see all the Excel files or the CSV files already popping up. You select the ones that you want to work with, and then you have it in Power BI. It's as easy as that. And actually, that is also what our customers need most. Especially the smaller and middle-sized ones. They just want to, like do some checks with their data, get basic information out of the system, and for that, it's perfect. As an example, what you can do with all these data services, there's another webinar I did a couple of months ago, about all these AI services that we also offer. For example, we have automated audit analysis. We detect anomalies, trends, root causes, like all these things you would expect these days to do ChatGPT. Also predictive analytics, risk-based decision making, and so on. This is quite elaborated already, and some of our customers are using that for quite some time. You might not even notice that as a user or as an auditor, but in the background, there is a lot going on already for quite some time. And that is what we have also built on top of all of these data services. So we don't go into the productive database and do stuff. It's actually also, we're using a reporting database, we are using APIs, we're using data services to create all these tool sets. And as an example, this is a very recently launched product that we have. It's a data product. It's a benchmarking report, pretty much, but not just that. Yeah, so it's from IATG, International Aerospace and Quality Group. So Airbus, Boeing, NASA, all of the big providers, aircraft providers, and what they are intending to do, or actually are doing, is they come up with performance ratings. So you have gathered all the data, you got a certificate, but on top of that, you also get a performance indication. Yeah. So, and not just a performance indication, but you also get a comparison of like where you stand to peers that you can actually also compare to that you can be compared to be compared with. We also used here AI, especially for free text analysis. So in this standard, especially, we have a lot of free text, and whoever ever tried to work with free text in audit analysis, that's a little bit tricky, but large language models like ChatGPT make it now easier to work with language data. So that's what we did. So pretty much the whole report is with large language models, and the analysis in the back is done with it. And it's not just a benchmarking report and a performance report, it's also an improvement tool. And I would say that's the pretty cool thing here. So we show you how good you do and how good you are compared also with others. And we also identify where you could improve and how you could improve. So there is an own section in there where we specifically point out if you would do X, Y, and Z, you could raise your performance to this and this and this level. So luckily for us, we had already kind of like a framework from IAKG for that, but we enhanced that with our AI insights. And once again, this is all being done on top of the reporting database and some of the data views that we have. The next thing I want to introduce you to and is our trusted partner program. Because we, as Intact, we have a standard product, a standard ERP product that is kind of like one that fits all, right? So that's what you do when you have a product. You have a product, and you really try to make it as good as it fits to pretty much everyone in the industry. Is this possible, especially with data and dashboards and data analysis? Up to a certain degree it is, but then the nits and bits come in, and also the culture, the way people look at data, the way people want to have data analyzed and so on, and then it really gets individual. It goes away from the standardized approach, but really gets very individual for each customer. So that's why we created this trusted partner program. These are data providers, data service providers, from analyzing data, creating dashboards, wrangling data around, and so on. They know Intact, they know our databases, they know our data services quite well, and are also certified by us. And then we, whenever some our customers have a challenge or they want to do something with data and it's not standard for us anymore, then we point them to one of our trusted partners. And in this case, I brought with me Christian from Use Data to Lead, actually the first trusted partner that we're having. And Christian, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Jochen, so much for the introduction and also for giving us the overview of the Intech platform. We, as Use Data to Lead, are a data consulting company, and we're doing the very opposite of what Intech is doing. So we're focused on customization, on tailored solutions. And maybe let me share my screen a sec. So here we are. And this is the image the picture that we're showing from the very beginning for our company, because it shows pretty much what our mission is, where we want to bring companies and organization from the situation on the left side, how you can look at data, to the right side, where you can see, easily understand your data, have a different view, different angles, different lenses on how to look at data. I mean, here with the weather, it's obvious that you know whether you have to take an umbrella or sunglasses. But in the business context, it means you know whether you have to when you have to act rather than react at a later stage. Then let me show you another slide just to get the picture of what we're doing. What we consider as a best practice is ingesting all the data that you're having. And when I'm saying this, there is no company or organization out there that would have just one single data source. So usually you always have a bunch of data sources. Often it's one main data source. For example, in the audit industry, it's then often Intact. But you will definitely have some social media data, accounting data, maybe a CRM system. And like in all companies and organizations, there will be some Excel files as well. So the idea of best practice, how to deal with data, is to ingest everything into one pool. That's a data warehouse, and you can imagine like having different drawers where you have a catalog of different data. And when then the user has some business questions, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, then everything is already organized. You just have to pick the right drawer to answer your business questions. And this is going to be very often with dashboards to show some insights, might also be some an application, might also be AI or machine learning or something like this. So that you get the idea of our approach. And another thing worth mentioning, we're using different tools. The data stack and the tech stack out there is huge. We're dealing with the most famous ones, and we're picking based on the use case, on the actual needs, the right technology. But enough about us. Let's talk about what we can do, what you can do with the data services that Intect is providing. I love to show actual things, putting hands on. And so I want to show you or guide you to three different use cases. One, let's start with that one, are dashboards. And what we were doing is building, you can consider it as a starter package, a set of ready-made dashboards where you just can plug and play, connect to the data views that Jochen was mentioning, and then get some insights out of that. I can just show you a short selection of what we're doing, just to make sure everything is randomized data. So there's, of course, no actual data that we're seeing here. It's a demo instance. And let's just quickly check what we're seeing here. Audit analysis general, where you have some KPIs out of your data views. Then you can see the progress over time. And it's obvious the colors are showing different status. Like in the previous years, things are more green, like done or finished. And in the current year, in 2025, of course, you have more things that are still ongoing. And for example, here you have even groups of these workflows. And in the breakdown, you can see every single steps, how things are distributed in this tooltip when you hover over this. And you can also see the total of everything, how it's distributed through workflow steps. If you want to see just one particular standard or service, you can, of course, just pick any of those, filter the dashboard. You see everything is changing. Let me release this again. Then here down there, you see, for example, the audits that are already done over time that might represent your monetary value. So you might want to push the bars at the right side to the top. And again, also here you can hover again, you see what's behind every single bar. Let me show you another dashboard. Again, it's just a selection where you have this workflow distribution starting from an audit has to be created, then it's ongoing and so on until it's done. And on the other hand, exactly this workflows distributed by different standards and services. You can also see it here. And one thing that you can do here is also use these bars, these tiers, for example, certificate created as a filter. So you just click on it and then you see how this particular workflow is being distributed to your standards. And another ready-made view out of the data views is that you can see all auditors, who is performing and who is being evaluated. So the auditors and the auditees, and per year and per status. Let me show you another example. I think it's also very important to see what's late and even overdue. And then you have already a list of the auditors that that are running late or are overdue with the count of audits that you see here. Hopefully, this is not being true at an actual data set. Let me put it like this. Then an early warning system with audits that might be in danger of late submissions. And then, of course, also the companies itself, the organizations itself that are overdue, already sorted, descending, that you can see what's going on and where you have to act. Last but not least, let me show you another entity looking at another thing, the findings. That would be, for example, one dashboard where you can see the number of findings. You can, of course, filter again, time range, grade it by, and so on. Let me just give you a quick overview. And here it would also be, again, by standard, the different number of findings. And again, you have a lot of different things that you can show. Even all the details that were recorded at the findings, you could get here. It's the same text is randomized, but you can see you have different views and you can analyze and everything, all dimensions, all metrics and measures that you have in your system. And again, this is just a short selection of what you can do with this many data views that we're having in the Intech platform. So that would be one approach, doing dashboards, creating insights from whatever angle or view you want to have or that you need. Another approach, so the second use case would be metrics based. And when I'm talking about this, let me jump into this one here. This is, let's imagine you look at the, and it's also called pulse, you look at the vitality of your organization, of your company, and the vitality is being measured by metrics, by different KPIs. And I was just, for this time, just selecting a few, like the number of audits, looking at the current month, or looking at the current year, but could also be the certificates. And if you look down here, that would be the count, the number of findings. And you always see automatically, because AI is supporting you with this, how things are going. Again, it's about the pulse, about the vitality of your organization. And the cool thing is it's super easily to configure. So it just takes, I don't know, maybe a few minutes to configure like a metrics card like this here. And everything else is done by generative AI. And the other cool thing here is when you remember, we were looking at these dashboards, at these insights, and you can, of course, filter a lot, look like this, look like that, and then find things. But what here, this method, this approach is doing, it's automatically checking if there is a trend, if there is something that you would have to look at. And for example, you get an overview here about all your metrics that you're following, that you're monitoring. And it tells you if it's going up, if it's going down, or, and we will get to that later, if there is maybe an alert about a trend, something that you need, that you would need to check. And let me pick randomly just any of those cards. For example, let's check certificates. So I already have an overview, but I can also drill down here and see how many certificates do I have for this month. It's telling month to date. So from first of the month until today, that would be 29. And it shows automatically a comparison to the period of last month, sorry. But then same count of days, that's important. And also same month, but for the previous year. And it tells you that it's within the expected range. It's already doing something like linear regression, so statistical models running on that automatically. And it tells you it's within the expected range. And you can see down there that it also gives you some options to ask questions, either in natural language, like we know it from the large language models, but there are also some ready-made, and it even shows you top insights. So that things are increasing because of some services that are driving the increase. Again, so it's suggesting everything, and here are some standards that would do those. But I can also then check which entity town has a low certificate, so where it's going up, where it's going down, absolute numbers, relative numbers in terms of increase, decrease, changes. And I also have another option here for breakdown based on some dimensions that I was picking when configuring these KPIs. And then here you can see distribution by service, by state, by town, and so on, everything automatically. You don't have to do anything else. And one thing that I was pointing to before is here is even a trend change. So if we look at that inside, we see that there are some patterns detected automatically as well. And it shows that the trend is going down, so that there are still seasonal patterns, but the seasonal patterns are going down, like in the last 2 weeks. And for this, so I just get the hint that there is something going on. If I want to deep dive, for this, I have my drill down dashboards where I have all the details with my cross steps, my metrics, where I can look and search like I want to. But again, this is awesome because again, it's just a few minutes. You connect to the data views, and you get an automatic overview of everything, what's going on here. So that was a use case number 2. And then last but not least, the last one is about planning. Planning, always hot topic. And what we're doing currently, it's development, is showing, for example, here that we have all unplanned audits. And unplanned audits in terms of we need to assign an auditor to this audit. And what we're doing here automatically is then showing all available auditors for these particular audits. Of course, they need a planning date for that. And for example, if we pick up Bloomworks and I see, okay, I have 10 available auditors, then I can click here, and in this tooltip, then I see all of the names. And then if I click on those names, then I can see the workload of this selected auditor. Then I can see, okay, the workload is already 80% for Emma in current month, so I might pick another one. So that would be one view of unplanned audits. And the other one would be, for example, having a calendar where I can see by days and auditors, the workload utilization, and of course then filter just particular auditors or audit types or country or whatever, and get an overview of that. Again, I was showing you some different approaches, how you can use these data services, what you can make out of these data services, different angles and views, how to look at data. This is what we're doing, customizing everything. And that said, I would hand over back to Michael.
Right. Hope. There you go. Yeah. Hope you guys can see me. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job, Christian. Good job, Jochen, as well. That was great, guys. We do have a couple of really interesting questions coming in. And I want to just again alert the audience that we do have our speakers here until the top of the hour, so we have time for some questions. But I actually have one of my own. Oh, before I get to my question, just as a reminder, use that Q&A button. If you do have a question, use the Q&A button, not the chat. I don't think you'll be able to access the chat anyway, but use the Q&A button, and then I'll get your questions right over to our speakers. But before we get to that, I actually have a really good, hopefully a good question of my own for you guys. something I've always wondered about. Many times we hear people use the term data and information interchangeably, but I don't think it's interchangeable, and I have a feeling you guys don't feel like it's interchangeable either. So, any comments on that notion?
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, as you already said, it's for sure not the same data, or that's why I normally call it raw data.
Mhm.
It is, even though it's a little bit a distinction to that, but it is like what is in a field. It might be a date. It might be a number. It might be uh, whatever. Yeah, text. But that alone does not give me information, right? So I think what Christian showed in the beginning, where you were seeing this like Excel file list, yeah, with the temperature and the weather. There's a step between having this and what you saw on the right side with the weather. You know, like the sun is shining and there is a trend of like going up and down and going up and down. And that is actually what the information then comes in. I would even go a step further, and you probably, some of you have heard about this pyramid, about this data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid. It's quite a common approach to all of that. I would say, or it makes it easier, and it also is now with the new terms that come in. Thank you. Is I would say it's data, information, and actionable insights. Because now we're also talking about insights, and insights opens another spectrum. You know, it's trends, it's anomalies, it's benchmarking, it's whatsoever. So insights is a new term, and all we are using it as well, yeah, inside of Intech, because this resonates a lot with like what people can do with this information. Actionable insights is actually what you would be after. Christian said it's actually business questions. Yeah, so like, how many audits are late? Why do I want to know that? Because I have to plan them, right? Something like this. So there is a huge difference between data and actionable insights, and there is work in between, and there is tool sets in between, and there is a lot of knowledge going into that to come actually from raw data to this insight part. Christian?
I think it was already answered perfectly. I would have also pointed to the slide, like data versus information, and also the pyramid that you were mentioning. So nothing to add. You already covered it very well.
Yeah.
But this is also probably one thing, because it's an excellent question. that it's also big what we see a lot with our customers is they don't know what they want or they
Right.
need. Yeah? They have a feeling of like, I need it, but they don't know what to ask, which is very interesting then for us to figure out together with them what can be interesting, yeah, or what they should actually know. And that's quite some work in some cases. Yeah? So to bring everyone on the same page, because this then also influences processes inside of the company, naming conventions, and so on and so on. So that's quite a journey.
Yeah, the idea that these days we gather a lot because we can, not because we necessarily plan to use it, but we just gather all the data and figure maybe we'll use it at some point, maybe we won't, and in all likelihood we don't. So, being a lot more strategic with that probably up front is probably really the way to go when you think about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of FOMO. There's a fear of missing out. I better have the data somewhere.
Just in case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yep. Great. All right. Well, we have, as I mentioned, we have a good series of questions here from our attendees as well. So let me rip through as many of these as I can in the 20 minutes or so we have left. How can this assist me as a self-contract internal auditor for ISO 9001 and ISO 13485? And I guess that really goes for any particular standard. I think this attendee is talking about those two standards that they're working with, but really any of the various management system standards. How can it help you as a self-contract internal auditor?
Mhm. I go first, Christian.
Sure.
Please. So first of all, when you're using our system, and I assume so now, then you would have first to have access to it, right? So because the data that is gathered, data ownership is a big part. Yeah? All the data that you own, whoever owns it, can also analyze it. The others don't. So what some of our customers do for their auditors, also the self-employed ones, they themselves, certification bodies, create dashboards. They create reports. Yeah, for example, one client, we just finished that one, was giving kind of like a dossier to the auditor when they go there of like the past findings, an overview, analysis on the non-conformities, the trends, which are of comparable other auditees, also the mitigation methods that they had, the root causes and how they solved it. So they have also metrics, for example, on how likely is the if you have non-conformity and you have this root cause, the mitigation method that you're having now in place, is this something that we see often or not? It's actually quite a good hint of like, of course, you can do it differently. Yeah. But in the other cases, people did it differently. Yeah, for a reason probably. So this goes into the risk-based auditing direction a little bit, guiding auditors to the right spots, I would say.
Excellent.
Christian?
Okay, so the next question about confidential and privacy. Who has access to this information? When we're talking about data, usually everything, or not usually, but everything has to be secured. So I think data security, I mean, you always have to be aware of who has access, but it's from the technical perspective, again, there is a secure layer, no one has access, especially data views. Even we as a trusted partner, we have long process until we get to the data with customer consent and everything. But again, from the technical perspective, everything is secure. If there are some issues, it's more likely that it's about some internal organizational thing that you have to be aware who has access to the data. How are you dealing with passwords? Who has access to the reporting database, to the data view? So that can be more of an issue. So it's more about humans than technology nowadays, I would say. That are my 2 cents about this one. I don't know, Jochen, if you want to add something.
No, I think like that's why the ISO 27K is so important and becomes more and more important, because it's information security, right? And it's not just about the numbers in a database. It's also, like how you deal with the passport situations, how you deal with like screens at an airport. Yeah. So this is increasingly important. Also, home office. Yeah. I mean, things you wouldn't normally think of. But of course, there are these concerns, especially with ChatGPT, of course, like that's a new dimension added to all of this. For example, the LLMs that we are using are all privately hosted. So it is a new dimension. Also, the learning of these LLMs, the training data, and so on. It's a sensitive topic. It is, for sure. But I would say, like, for what we are doing with the data services, that's robust technology used for a lot of years so far. And I would say, as Christian said, it's like more about the people than the technology.
Yeah, good answer. I think that's probably true. I think that there's a lot of complexity that a lot of people are concerned about right now, thinking about these issues of data security, and it's an important one to think about again as you kind of do the planning. Here's a question from an attendee. It's a bit of a long question, so I'll try to get to the heart of it. I think is related to the system we're talking about today. Is really with regard to scheduling time planning and scheduling of auditing and reporting. Kind of the upfront work, planning, reporting times, finalizing audit plans, updating audit programs, doing the comments and the resolutions, all that stuff, all that data that's really part and parcel of an audit. How does your system? I think the question really is how would you handle all those parts of the audit? And I guess that really would be more for you, probably, Jochen, but either of you can feel free to answer.
Either, I would say.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of topics in this question, I would say. I mean, actually, the software that we provide is helping you through the whole process, right? So it's automation. Yeah, it makes the data visible from the database, and so you should save time, money, resources at the end of the day. Yeah, be more effective, be more efficient. That it was the promise of the IT area, right? So and now with AI, it's just another level, but it's the same promise, or actually the same question. How can we get more effective and efficient? And so you have for every process, you have different front ends. So you see, if, for example, in the planning step, you just see the planning and all the data is already there that you need. And then you just plan your audits. Yeah, you have probably also rollover audits. You have the auditors that are already available, that are certified, that are capable of doing these audits, and so on. So every step, or for example, the reviews, you get all the review data back, you get the audit report already back, and then you try to make it as easy as possible for the back office people to do their job. With classical approaches like the Intake platform, that's the basic product that we're having, or that we provide, it is a software. Now we add AI to it. For example, audit planning, right? So it's an optimization task. Hit the button and you get a finished audit plan would be the ideal scenario. Actually, funny enough, nobody wants that. So even though that's possible, but you can guide people through the steps a little bit better. And make suggestions, for example. Yes, for example, yeah, that would be an audit plan for the next week. Yeah, what you want to change and so on. And also what Christian showed, because why we have that kind of like in the Intake platform, but why would Christian then also work on that? Once again, we are a standard product, but also Christian is doing some little applications for planning, for example, because some of the plannings are just very, very different. Some CBs have just a very different planning process, so which we can't handle, but you can kind of like outsource that to other little applications. I hope that helped a little.
I think so. Yeah, I think that was a good overview of that. Christian, anything to add to that? The various pieces of the audit process.
We are always in an easier position like Intake, because like we were saying at the very beginning, what we're doing is customizing. When someone says we need, and we're always building just things on top, of the Intake platform. And if someone tells us, okay, this is our particular process, this is exactly what we need to have, and we want to have this color and that color, we just do it. It's easy for us. Jochen has a more different role, because like he was saying, one size fits all. Then you have to find a balance between all of these requirements and needs and things. So this is what I can add. So for us, it's easier because we're just customizing 100% and we do whatever.
Got it.
Customers need.
Okay, here's got a couple more questions here before we wrap up the session. Can this tool be used while conducting the actual audit documentation, and is AI integrated to aid in extracting audit criteria, etc., or is it purely a tool for post-audit? Good question.
So the Intake platform per se covers every step, yeah, as a software. Right now, we have AI to some extent built in, especially, for example, for these reports and so on. but not in every single step in the platform. For example, writing audit reports, funny enough, that's one of the most asked for applications of AI so far. We do have a proof of concept for that, and that is something that will hit the shelves hopefully sometime next year or the year after. Because of course, you know, there are a lot of things to consider, but it would make sense because you gather all this data. We have also, for example, a mobile app, and some auditors do record their audits, yeah? So, or make pictures, or and put all the information into the Intake platform. So we also even go the other way, that we say you gather all this information with your smartphone, and we populate the Intake platform with it, and then write the audit report, at least the first draft, for you to check. So yeah, this is something that we are playing around with.
Excellent. And I have one final question, but we do have a few more minutes. If while we're answering this last question, I'll let folks queue up if they do have another question or two to get in before the top of the hour. Feel free. But the final question I have right now is, how globally relevant are the insights on areas of improvement? Is it demographic, specific, etc.? Can you shed more light here?
If I understand correctly, there are, from the data that we have seen so far, always the question is it comparable? Which is the most difficult one to actually answer. And this needs to be very careful. You have statistical methods, right? So you could say, okay, it's significantly different from the others. Depending on which methods you're using, you get different results. But you have also contextual one. Yeah? So we are very carefully like combining statistical methods with expert input. Yeah, what is comparable and what is not, and find kind of like a common ground here. From what we see, it is very different. Audit findings, audit performances, auditor performances, very, very, very different. But once again, there might also be a reason why it is like that, yeah, and most likely a very good one. So at the end of the day, what we are always trying to do is, at the end of the chain, there has to be an expert or more experts. And we provide the information for them as good as we can, that they can make an informed decision. So, and because we have, there is a good diagram also for that, you know, you could automate all of that. And now we're talking about AI agents doing all of that, right? Nobody in between. That is definitely, at least it's our philosophy. That's not what we're going to do. We say at the end of the day, there are reasons for correlations. There are reasons to perform better or worse or whatsoever. And at the end of the day, someone has to make an informed decision, but not an AI managing the whole standard alone, just of like statistical data. That doesn't make sense.
Well, guys, that was a really good presentation. I think you gave us a lot of good data and information there that I think a lot of us can really appreciate. Again, I want to encourage everyone who's watching this on demand to feel free again to ask questions. If you do have further questions for our speakers, just email us directly here at Exemplar Global at info@exemplarglobal.org, and we'll get your questions right over to our panelists. And of course, again, if you're watching this, several people had asked me this question. If you're watching this either on demand or live, you do qualify for CPD. We will be sending you a post-event email with this recording, as well as instructions about how you can claim your CPD. So keep your eye on your email inbox for information on that. So again, Jochen, Christian, thank you so much for joining us today. Great job, guys. Really appreciate it. And we will see you all here at the next Exemplar Global webinar. Thanks for joining us today.